Good morning everyone, and welcome to another fun layout idea. This is actually a fun fold layout that I have seen all over the internet for cards and card making. It was actually, I saw it first as a 5x7 card, and then I saw it as a 4x6 card, and I liked it so much that I wanted to convert it to a scrapbook page. So I converted it to a 12x12 scrapbook page. Mine is a little bit different because of the size of the page, but I love how it turned out. So right now this is how I have it set up, but the more I'm looking at it, I would probably add a third picture tucked in here once I have all of my pictures. But that is what we are going to make today. This particular example has taken me a lot of trial and error, but I finally have the measurements down. It does require quite a bit of paper. So let me show you what you're going to need in order to recreate this. Okay, so these are the papers that you're going to need. You're going to need one sheet for your top decorative page, and you're going to need one sheet for your coordinating page, which I'll use this one. Then you are going to need 2.5 of your next layer, and the last two layers. You're going to need basically 2.5 to get all of your angles and everything that you need. So I don't have 2.5 of my red. I only have 2 pieces, but I found another that's in the same family, and since such a small amount is showing, I'm probably gonna just substitute this one in, and I don't think you'll be able to tell. The tone's pretty close. So you could always use cardstock if you have a lot of cardstock, but basically 2.5, 2.5, 1 and 1. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So the first thing that you're going to need is your bottom paper. And in order to make this a rectangle for our layout, we need to cut it at 2 inches so that you end up with a 10x12 square. Once you have that, you want to mark your paper at 4 inches from the right. And that's what you have to see me doing here. Then after I have my 4 inches, I'm lining up that mark with the bottom right hand corner. And it doesn't fit exactly on your trimmer, but you can line it up close enough that you can pretty much get that triangle cut off. Now you want to keep track of those triangles, so we're going to use that. Now here's the next paper. This time we're cutting it at 2.25 inches. That little piece is scrap. And now we're going to take our rectangle, and this time we're going to rotate it 180 degrees and cut off another 1/4 inch from the bottom. Now we're going to align it, and this time we're going to mark from the left edge of the paper, and we're going to mark over to 5 3/4 inches. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to use that mark, and we're going to cut a diagonal from that mark to the bottom right hand corner. Again, making sure you keep track of those triangles because we're going to use them as the top overlay in our layout. So you can see I'm just resting it on top of the top one, making sure that it's aligned perfectly. Then I'm going to take the triangle. I'm going to use the straight edge, and I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch. This will allow it to lay right on top of the orange perfectly, which is what you see me doing here. Then finally, we're going to take our topmost piece of paper, and this time we're going to cut at 2.5 inches. And then we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, well no, 90 degrees. And we're going to cut a 1/2 inch off the bottom. Now we're going to line it up again on our top of the mat, and this time we're going to mark it at, again from the left hand side, and we're going to mark it at 5.5 inches. And then we're going to put it back in our trimmer and line it up as best as we can from that mark to the bottom right hand corner. And you may not be able to get it exactly, but you can pretty much get it with this triangle. Just take your time, it'll work perfectly. That piece lays on top of your red, and then the triangle, we're going to take that and we're going to cut, rotate it to the straight edge, and we're going to cut a 1/2 inch off this time. And then that will lay on top of your red paper. And what you see me doing here is I'm just going ahead and adhering all of the pieces of the paper together so that I don't lose track of all of my triangles. Make sure that you get those tips so that they don't buckle up. So I always use repositional on all of the corners of the triangle just to make sure that it'll adhere and stay down correctly. Okay, now we're getting ready to do our last triangle, and this time we're going to have to cut some more rectangles. This first rectangle we're going to cut at 8 inches, and that leaves us with an 8 by 12 rectangle, and we're going to cut it from angle to angle, corner to corner. What's important here is that you pay attention to which direction you cut from. So it doesn't matter if you go from the upper left to the bottom right or the upper right to the bottom left. You just need to make sure that for these next 3 triangles, you cut them exactly the same way. Ask me how I know this, guys, because I messed up the first time I did it. So pay attention to whether you're starting at the left or starting at the right, and cut all of your papers the same way. These triangles are bigger, so they're not going to fit perfectly in your trimmer, but you should just be able to snip the edges that don't fit. So one triangle you'll keep and the other triangle will be scrap. Now we're going to take our second piece of paper, and this time we're going to cut it at 7 3/4 inches. And then we'll rotate it 90 degrees and we'll cut it off a 1/4 inch. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut from corner to corner. I started at the left-hand corner and went down to the right-hand corner. So I'm going to cut this exactly the same way. And again, remember, it probably is not going to fit perfectly in your trimmer, and that's okay. Do the best you can and then snip it. You could put this on your mat and draw a line and cut it with your scissors if you wanted, or you could use a rotary blade to cut it if you want. But as you all know, I'm not exact, and that's not super important to me, so I do the best I can and just snip the edges. Again, we need to make sure that we cut off a 1/4 inch off of the straight edge so that it fits perfectly in our triangle, and that's what I did just then. Now we're going to take our last piece of paper, and again, we're going to need to make it into a rectangle. This time, it's going to be 7.5 inches. So we're going to cut it at 7.5 inches, which is what you see me doing here. And then we are going to rotate it 90 degrees. And this time we're going to cut off a 1/2 inch. And again, we will cut it from corner to corner. And since I started on the left-hand side, again, you'll see me turn my paper, start at the left-hand side, and go down to the bottom right. And again, we'll have to trim it this time another 1/4 of an inch. I'm just double checking to make sure I had the measurement correct there, but it is 1/4 of an inch. And now I have that triangle completed, so now I'm going to adhere all of those triangles together, which is what you'll see me doing here. One of the things that you'll see a little bit later is the way that you cut your triangle actually changes the design just a little bit. And I didn't realize I cut it 2 different ways until I put them side by side, but you'll see that in a second. All right, now that I have all of my pieces cut, I'm taking that 1/2 sheet of paper and then I'm adhering my red on top of it. I had accidentally miscut that, so that's why it's not a full 6 inches, and you're seeing me trim it down because you're trying to save paper. And now I am adhering the center. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your triangle and you're going to want to put it in the corner, and you want to just have one edge touch and the other edge go almost to the bottom. And then you're aligning the same thing with the second triangle. You're starting it in the corner and you're just going over the top of the first, making it equidistant from one another. And now what I'm doing is my favorite thing, playing with embellishments, trying to figure out how I want to embellish this particular page. I also decided my picture size for this particular layout. I was going to use a 4x6 picture, but here again, this is up to you. I could have easily chose 2 3x4s like I did in the first option, or I could have done even smaller photos. This is your time to play. Figure out, do you want to use embellishments? Do you want to have more pictures? What is it that you really like? So now I'm bringing in the second layout, and when I put them right next to one another, you'll notice that on the left hand side my big triangle is a little bit lower, and on the right hand side my triangle is up higher. That's because on the left hand side I cut from the left to the right, and on the right hand side I cut from the right to the left. So that's why you see that difference. You'll notice that on my top triangles I actually cut them the same way, but the way that it looks, because the bottom triangle is different, it changes the design. So this is what makes it creative. This is what makes it fun. Play with it, enjoy it. I had such a great time turning this card into a layout. I thought it turned out really cute. So I hope you've had fun watching this video, and I look forward to seeing if you all decide to create this same design. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and until next time. All right, bye.